I'll present our the findings of our paper, Platform Conceptions of Control, which a paper that I've co-authored with Valeria and Stefan. And this is the first time that we are presenting this paper in front of an audience. So any kind of like comment or feedback is very much appreciated. So as we have talked this morning, we observe a rapid growth in the platform markets as new platform companies emerge and try to gain a position in a booming yet highly competitive market with razor-thin margins. But platforms are offering neither new products nor new services. Instead, platforms' main asset, we argue, is the novel ways in which the labor force is brought together, surveyed, and managed. So this research demonstrates that the labor is essential to platforms' competition in the market, and labor is what makes platform markets distinct from other markets in the organization of the market, and arguing that organization of the market is embedded in the organization of the labor. So in other words, we argue that platform strategic positioning in a highly competitive market is contingent upon platforms' management of the workforce through algorithms. So this is a research that studies the interlinkages between platform market organizations and labor force management. So existing scholarly work on platforms has, on the one hand, adopted a sociology of work lens to examine the effects of platform activities on workers by often pointing to the role of algorithmic control in the labor force management. But on the other hand, existing body of work has used sociology of markets approach to examine the structure of the platform markets in relation to competition, regulation, and market instability. So this article aims to bring these two main streams of research to explore the ways in which platforms' market activities inform how workers are deployed, managed, and controlled. So in order to do that, we build upon the theories around conceptions of control within the Flicksteinian economic sociology literature. So translating these insights to the world of platforms, we uncovered that although platforms operate in different markets, they still carry a similar logic, which we describe as platform conceptions of control. That's where the title of the paper comes from. And this platform conceptions of control involve maximizing the supply and flexibility of workers to be able to provide services. To be able to provide services 24/7, attract customers, and therefore growth with the aim of dominating the market vis-a-vis competitors. So I'll very briefly talk about research methods. We have talked about the scope of this project, and within the scope of this project, our case study for this paper is Belgium, because it's an interesting context with a significantly regulated labor market with strong trade unions, and where various rules were introduced to accommodate the entrance of platforms in the market. So adopt a comparative qualitative case study research design. We decided to focus on two major platform sectors, delivery and care, and Deliveroo and UPs as our case studies, considering that these two are one of the biggest, most established and dominant players in their fields with a large presence in Europe and Belgium. So both platforms, having started their operations in the early stages of the platform economy boom, have shaped the rules of the game and today operate on a global scale. By holding the national context constant, the research was able to pinpoint commonalities and differences across sectors. So the article relies on 44 interviews in total, 38 autobiographical interviews with care platform workers and delivery platform workers, in addition to expert interviews. I'll happy to talk more about research methods in the question and answer section if you like. So I'll jump into our findings. So we describe delivery platforms as market makers. So what do we mean by market making? So delivery platforms generate and digitally manage a large supply of flexible labor force, mostly through integrating student workers and migrants into the platform economy. So although delivery services existed before the inception of the delivery platforms, such as Pizza Hut, Domino's Pizza, ordering a pizza that comes to your door, through a courier. What is distinct in platform work is that delivery platforms have created and centralized an occupational group that is employed neither by the restaurant nor by the client, instead who work independently and without a contract while being managed by the delivery platform. So we pinpoint three main mechanisms of what we describe as market making. So the first is low barriers of entry. So upon registering the platform, delivery workers were required to provide only their identity information while not being provided any on-job or in-person training. So the low barriers to entry allow performers to maximize allow platforms to maximize the number of workers and generate a large pool of workers to be able to respond to demand at all times. I'm not going to go through these quotations from our interviews since we are limited in time, but feel free to read them on your own. So coupled with low barriers of entry, we also have heightened competition among workers. With this, particularly with the start of the pandemic, the increasing demand for food delivery services, a jump in the number of people who were laid off from other work due to shutdown. We see like a boost in the number of platform workers. All of our informants underline that the number of riders constantly continued to grow, resulting in increased competition and therefore limited access to work due to fewer work opportunities and therefore, resulting in dramatically diminished income. So I'll skip again to the next session, next mechanism quite quickly. Coupled with low barriers of entry and heightened competition, we also see irregularization of work. So delivery workers' employment status and payment systems have faced various changes throughout the years, particularly following court cases that were directed towards solving the ambiguities around worker status. So as a result, delivery constantly shifted the ways in which workers are employed, paid, and controlled by our algorithms. For instance, workers in the past were paid per hours, and then payments were remunerated per delivery, resulting in unpaid work for workers. Workers in the past signed up for shifts knowing when and how much to work, and then the shift system was canceled, and the employment system turned into free-for-all system, resulting in work insecurity for workers. Or workers in the past worked under what is called the peer-to-peer system, and they did not have to pay like taxes, but then with the legal changes, workers themselves were given the responsibility to pay tax contribution, resulting in decrease in income. So, we see constant adaptation of workers' working conditions that always results in further irregularization of income and further flexibilization of work that, of course, result in return, loss of income and intensified precarity. So as showcased here, delivery platforms act as market makers by generating and pooling a new occupational group that is uncontracted riders with fluctuating work hours and payments in order to respond to a growing demand for delivery services. So in this highly competitive and growth-oriented delivery platform market, platforms try to meet the immediate and fluctuating demand during down hours, during peak hours, during low seasons, during high seasons, in order to boost this platform traffic. So therefore, platforms, as I've mentioned here, lower barriers of entry, heightened competition, and further irregularized work, which are not surprisingly at the cost of workers' livelihoods. So I'll quickly move into care platforms, which we described as market shapers. So moving on to care platforms and what we mean by market shaping. So care sector in Belgium is a growing and rather regulated market. In 2004, a service voucher system was introduced in Belgium, which is a consumer subsidy introduced to formalize jobs in the domestic service by encouraging demand to these services. So the program resulted in a major boost in the demand for care services, and care platforms have followed this trend and entered into an already existing market and shaped it by disrupting it. So I'll pinpoint quickly three main strategies of market shaping. So very similar to delivery platforms, care platforms also lower barriers to entry. They allow clients and workers to register and create a profile. And UP's, our case study, does not require the worker to provide any work permit or certification, while the formal subsidized care services require them. So by offering low barriers, care platforms are able to steal workers from the formal care sector, in addition to incorporating workers who stand on the fringes of the labor market, for instance, those who lack credentials, those who lack access to the formal care agencies, and by pooling these large group of workers, similar to delivery platforms, care platforms try to attract a wide range of customers. So then we see shifting formalization. Our findings demonstrate that majority of our worker informants are not registered as self-employed workers. Instead, they work informally, receive off-the-book payments to be able to avoid tax and social security payments on their very low platform income, a process that is also incentivized by care platforms, since the labor and the payment are performed offline and outside of the platform. So shifting informality is embedded in workers like high tax payment obligations. They also have to pay like social security contributions, but their earnings on platform are not that range from like 7 to 10 euros per hour, are not able to cover these social security payments. So workers feel the necessity to increase their hourly rates to be able to compensate these payments. But in this like highly competitive platform environment, workers with high rates are, of course, highly disadvantaged, and therefore they resort to informality. And then lastly, we see migrantization of the workforce. Our findings demonstrate that particularly migrant workers who lack access to the formal labor market make use of platforms which do not require declaration of work permits, and therefore incentivize informal, undeclared, untaxed work. So migrant care workers are not only exposed to substandard working conditions and lower pay, but also they are racialized, sexualized, and disproportionately face sexual harassments, such as being asked to perform some form of like sex work, or giving a back massage to a client, for instance. So to sum up what we mean by
last 2 minutes.
Okay.
Last 2 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. So to sum up what we mean by market shaping is that care platforms act as market shapers by entering into an already existing market that grew through state subsidization of care services, and they have followed this like growth in the supply and pooled workers who like access to the formal market with no barriers of entry. So by offering like below the formal market rates and low price services, the platforms foster informal and uncontracted labor, through which, again, similar to delivery platforms, care platforms also increase this like platform traffic and hence gain a competitive position in the market. So to sum up, this research displays delivery and care platforms market making and market shaping strategies in Belgium. And despite different ways in which these two markets are organized, platforms carry a similar operational logic, which we describe as platform conceptions of control. So these strategies are directed towards gaining a competitive position in the market, and they are most importantly embedded in the ways in which platforms manage their labor force. And this is where our contribution to the literature comes in, that we build linkages between platform market operations and platform labor force management. So our research displays that platforms' market domination strategies in a highly competitive platform field is interlinked to their organization of the labor force. In doing so, we bridge the two literatures within sociology that have remained separate so far: literature on sociology of markets and literature on sociology of work, literature on platform markets and literature on platform labor conditions. Thank you. Hopefully I'm on time, and I'm looking forward to your comments and feedbacks.